Justin Trudeau, poster boy for Liberals the world over, but making a bit of a hash of this, I think.
Well, absolutely, and what an irony that he has the epithet Liberal. It really does alarm me. We've had 2 years of COVID, and we've had 2 years of authoritarianism within democracies. And even when I was in Parliament, we were very wary of giving government powers, emergency powers, because, of course, any minister will say at the dispatch box in Parliament, these powers will only be used in these circumstances, and he'll be referring, no doubt, to terror or to war or something like that. But then, of course, governments, and even local governments in this country, have found it convenient to use powers that are there basically to counter terrorism, to counter things that they have found inconvenient. And that is what has happened in Canada. I'm very much in agreement with you. I was driven mad by the Extinction Rebellion people. Yeah, driven mad by them, and I wanted them off the streets. But if someone had said, oh, well, let's freeze their bank accounts, I would certainly have protested against that, because that just is not the right application of the right sort of measure.
Events in Canada have read like a parable. It wasn't just the apparent hypocrisy of Trudeau invoking some of these powers. When GoFundMe said, we will take the $9 million that have been donated to the truckers and we'll take it off them and we'll hand it to charities who we deem the appropriate recipients. They later revoked that idea. But all that sort of stuff from the wilder shores from the internet you read about tech running the world and having an agenda that's only aligned with one political perspective suddenly rang true.
And Andrew made a very important point there, didn't he? Which is that the blockade is finished. So, I mean, even if these emergency powers had been justified, which in my view, and I think yours, they were not, they're still in place even though the blockade has come to an end. I do think in general, there's a big competition in the world now between the authoritarian regimes like China and Russia and the liberal regimes, the democracies. And some of this is played out over COVID. And I think, for example, that we have done quite well. I know we've had a lot of deaths over COVID, but I think we have maintained a lot of freedoms and we're now returning quickly to freedom. A country like China is locked down. I don't know how it's ever going to get out of lockdown because its vaccines have not been very effective. It has a zero COVID policy. Zero COVID policy, in my view, is doomed to failure. So in all of this, we're going to learn lessons about the success of authoritarian regimes versus democracy. It's all part of this very important competition between two ways of seeing the world, two systems of government, one of which is accountable and one of which is not. And it's quite disappointing to find Canada at the moment in the wrong category.